My ex-wife and her new spouse ambushed me at daycare drop-off, grinning about my new reality. I always thought the end would be loud, dramatic, final, something cinematic like plates smashing or doors slamming or a scream torn from someone's throat. But it was quiet. It was the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. A sterile hallway, a laminated welcome sign with cartoon bears, the smell of baby wipes and faint urine. My daughter's tiny fingers laced through mine as she hummed to herself, completely unaware that something inside me was splintering like a chair leg under slow, unbearable weight. She was skipping, literally skipping. 1 2 1 2, her sneakers squeaking softly on the polished linoleum. "Daddy, how many steps from the door to the classroom?" she asked without looking at me, her head tilted toward the floor like she was trying to count tiles. "I don't know, Bug," I said, but my voice came out thin. She didn't notice. "You can tell me later, okay?" She nodded, satisfied. Her hair smelled like strawberries, like the cheap shampoo Lisa used to buy, tear-free, sulfate-free, gentle enough for toddlers and heartbroken grown men who still sniff their kids' pillow after they leave for the weekend. I'd braided her hair that morning. Not well, I still couldn't quite get it right, but I'd watched enough YouTube tutorials to make it passable. She said she liked it lumpy but pretty, which felt like a metaphor for my entire life. I remember the weight of her backpack, how ridiculously small it looked slung over her shoulders. It was shaped like a fox with 2 floppy ears and a little tail that wagged when she walked. It bounced as she skipped. I remember thinking absurdly that I should have packed her a different snack, maybe something organic, something Lisa wouldn't criticize if she peeked inside. I didn't expect to see them there. That's what I keep coming back to. I thought it would just be another handoff. A quick kiss on the forehead, a "be good today," and then back to my car, back to the silence of my 1-bedroom apartment with its 2 large couch and half-empty fridge and the mug Lisa left behind, the one with the chip in the rim and the word "Mama" written in cursive. But there they were, Lisa and Tom, standing by the check-in clipboard, flanked by rows of tiny cubbies stuffed with sippy cups and extra socks and nap blankets. She was wearing that navy coat I bought her 2 Christmases ago, the one she said made her feel put together. Her hair was pulled up in that easy, no-effort way she used to do when we'd spend lazy Sundays together watching garbage TV, her feet tucked under my thigh on the couch. And Tom, tall, clean-shaven, trying too hard Tom, was wearing a smug little half-smile and that beige quarter-zip sweater that made him look like someone you'd hire to teach tennis to rich people's kids. I froze, not dramatically, not like in the movies. It was just a slow stalling of movement. My body kept going for a step or two, but my mind had already shut the lights off. I could hear my pulse thudding in my ears. I felt my stomach twist, not like nausea, more like a cold knot pulling tight from the inside. Lisa smiled first, practiced, measured, her teeth gleamed. "Morning," she said, like this was normal, like this wasn't some sick joke. "We thought we'd come in together today, thought it'd be nice." Tom added, "Yeah, wanted to get a little time with her before work. Hope that's cool." "Cool." My daughter let go of my hand and ran to them, no hesitation, just full-body joy. She flung herself toward Lisa first, natural, expected, and then to him. Wrapped her arms around his waist like she'd done it 100 times, like he was safe, like he belonged. I felt the air leave my lungs, not all at once, not in a gasp, just a slow deflation, a hollowing. My hand was still hovering midair, like I was waiting for her to take it again. "She's been so excited lately," Lisa said. Her voice was syrupy. "Tom been showing her those silly animal videos and now she wants to be a marine biologist." Tom laughed. "She's got a real brain for it." I wanted to punch his teeth in. I really did, just once, right through that smug smile. I imagined it, the crack of bone, the gasps, the daycare staff rushing in. I imagined how satisfying it would feel for a second. And then I imagined my daughter watching, crying, confused, afraid. So I said nothing. I nodded, my hands clenched at my sides. I could feel my fingernails digging into my palms. She did her hair herself today, Lisa said. Right, sweetheart? My daughter nodded. Well, Daddy helped. She turned to smile at me, and for a second, just a sliver, I was real again. I smiled back, crooked, weak. Tom crouched down beside her, straightening the fox backpack. You're gonna be the coolest kid in class today, he said, like he'd earned that right. My skin itched, my eyes burned. I couldn't stay there. I didn't trust myself to speak. I felt like I was being swallowed whole by the floor. I turned. No goodbyes, no ceremony, just the quiet scrape of my shoes on the tile as I walked out, heart pounding so loud I was sure someone would stop me. I pushed through the front doors and stepped into the parking lot. The cold slapped me in the face. Gray sky, empty spaces, the sound of a garbage truck backing up in the distance. I stood by my car, both hands on the roof, breathing like I'd just run a marathon. My fingers were shaking. I didn't cry. I just stood there, letting the cold air numb me. That was the moment. Not the divorce, not the paperwork, not the day she moved out. It was this, watching my daughter run to another man like it was nothing, like I was nothing. And seeing my ex-wife beam, proud as if this was a happy little sitcom family just switching cast members mid-season. Everything broke then, quietly, without fanfare, like a string snapping inside me that I didn't know had been holding everything together. I wanted to scream, I wanted to break something, but mostly I just wanted to go back in time. Back to Sunday mornings and blueberry pancakes, back to singing off-key lullabies, back to when I was her hero. Instead, I got in the car, closed the door, let my forehead rest against the steering wheel. My breath fogged up the glass. I counted to 10, then 20, then 50. And when I finally started the engine, it felt like I was driving away from a funeral. The next 3 days blurred into each other like wet paint, smearing across my sense of time. I didn't go into work. I told my boss I had a stomach bug, which wasn't even a full lie. Something was rotting inside me. I lived in a kind of dull fog, orbiting my own grief without ever landing anywhere. I didn't shower. I wore the same hoodie and sweats until they started to smell like old coffee and armpit. I didn't answer calls except from the daycare, and even then, I held my breath until they confirmed it was just a reminder or a form to sign and not something worse. I barely ate toast, maybe half a granola bar. I'd open the fridge, stare at the food like it belonged to someone else, and close it again. There was this sense that I'd failed some essential test. That moment at drop-off had exposed something, how replaceable I was, how easily rewritten. Tom had slid into my daughter's life like he'd just been waiting in the wings, ready to recite the lines I thought only I knew. I kept replaying it, the way she ran to him, the ease, the way Lisa smiled like she'd won, or maybe not even that, maybe like it wasn't even a competition to begin with. Maybe I was the only one who didn't get the memo that the game was over. I'd walk around my apartment touching things like they could anchor me, her blanket still on the couch. The crayon drawing of a rainbow with 2 stick figures and a third one she'd drawn just recently, one I hadn't asked about because I didn't want to hear the answer. The cup with tiny teeth marks on the rim, ghosts everywhere. I tried distracting myself. TV didn't help. Every show had a dad who was either a hero or a punchline. Social media was a war zone of curated happiness. Lisa didn't post much, but when she did, it was soft focus photos of her and our daughter at the zoo or baking cookies or bundled up in matching hats. Tom wasn't in the frame, but he was there. You could feel his hand behind the camera. One night, I opened the Tinder app. Not because I was ready, I knew I wasn't, but because I wanted to believe there was still a version of me someone might want. I swiped without thought, without even looking at the names or bios. Everyone seemed too shiny, too filtered, too far away from the wreckage I was buried in. And then I met Jenna, not on Tinder, but in the real world, which felt like a miracle in itself. It was the dog park. I'd forced myself to take Max out, even though I hadn't walked him properly in days. He sniffed the grass like it offended him personally. I was sitting on a bench, hunched inside my coat, when she sat down next to me and said, "Your dog looks like he's been through some shit." I laughed, like really laughed, the first real sound I'd made that didn't feel forced or bitter. "He's just picking up my energy," I said. "We're both emotionally constipated." She grinned. Her dog, a lanky mutt with a limp, flopped down beside her with a dramatic sigh. "Same." We didn't talk about our lives, not right away. We talked about our dogs, about how bad dog food smells, about how people in the park either talk too much or not at all. It was easy, uncomplicated, like I could exist without explaining myself. After a few meetings, she asked, gently, "You going through something?" I didn't answer right away. I just nodded. "You don't have to be okay yet," she said, tossing a stick for her dog. "Just don't pretend it doesn't hurt." That sentence stayed with me. It rattled around in my chest like loose change. That night, I sat in my car outside the apartment and let myself cry. Not sobbing, not dramatic, just this slow, aching release, like my body finally gave up holding it in. I pressed my palm to the steering wheel, forehead resting against it, and let the tears fall quietly. No audience, no judgment. I thought about all the times I'd told my daughter it was okay to cry, and how, somewhere along the way, I'd stopped believing that for myself. I started writing again, just little things, notes on my phone, sentences that didn't lead anywhere. A memory about the way my daughter's face crumpled when she lost her favorite stuffed animal. A fragment of a dream I'd had where Lisa and I were young again, standing in our first apartment, laughing about burnt pasta. I started to feel things again, not good things necessarily, but real things. That dull numbness started to fade. In its place was sadness, yes, but also clarity. Like the grief had a shape now, something I could start to walk around, examine from different angles. I knew the worst wasn't over. There was still court to navigate, logistics, holidays, birthdays, a lifetime of handoffs and negotiations. But in those quiet moments, walking Max under bare trees or drinking lukewarm coffee by the window, I started to believe there was something beyond survival. Something like healing, or at least the beginning of it. And for now, that was enough. It had been a few weeks, not long enough to call anything healed, but long enough for the rawness to scab over, just barely. I was functioning again, back at work, answering emails, folding laundry, remembering to water the sad plant on the windowsill that my daughter named Leafy and insisted was part of the family. I even went to the gym once, which felt like trying on clothes that didn't quite fit anymore, something that used to be mine, but now just reminded me how much space I still didn't fill. I started counting drop-offs like landmines. Each one I survived, I mentally checked off. Most were quick, almost sterile. A nod to the front desk staff, a wave goodbye, sometimes a hug if she wasn't feeling shy. But that didn't mean I stopped bracing for it. Every time I pulled into that parking lot, I felt the armor come on. Shoulders square, jaw tight, breathe in, don't let them see you flinch. Then came Wednesday. I should have known something was off. The sky was too bright, that kind of washed-out blue that makes everything feel overexposed. There was a pressure in the air, like weather was coming. My daughter was quiet in the backseat, staring out the window, hugging her bunny against her chest. "You okay, Bug?" I asked, glancing at her in the mirror. She shrugged. "Do you think Bunny misses me when I'm at school?" I swallowed. "I think Bunny counts the minutes." That made her smile a little, but it didn't last. Something about the way she held herself, I don't know, like she was learning how to be careful, and I hated that. Hated that the world was already teaching her that. When we walked into the building, I smelled them before I saw them. Lisa's perfume, the one she used to wear when we had date nights, back when we were still trying. And Tom's Too Clean cologne, like he'd just walked out of a magazine ad. There they were, again, leaning casually against the cubbies like they belonged there, like this was their moment. My ex-wife and the man she now shared a bed with, waiting for my daughter like I was some weekend babysitter instead of the goddamn father. Lisa smiled again, always the smile. "She was asking about you yesterday," she said to me, like that was supposed to make me feel better. Wanted to show Tom the puzzle she finished. Tom knelt down and opened his arms. My daughter ran to him without hesitation. "Hey, superstar," he said, lifting her with ease like she didn't weigh a thing, like I didn't. My ears went hot, my chest started tightening, slow and steady. Lisa looked at me, not cruelly, just confidently, like she'd won something, like she had a life now that didn't need me, and this performance of togetherness was just a casual, inevitable detail. Tom turned to me, still holding my daughter, and said, "You're doing great, man, seriously. I know this kind of transition is hard." Man, I don't know what exactly cracked, whether it was the tone or the patronizing little nod or just the way he held her so easily, but something snapped. Not like glass, not sharp, more like a rope finally breaking after months of strain. I took a step forward, my voice when it came surprised even me, not loud but low, like something pulled from the gut. "You don't get to talk to me like that," I said. "You don't get to grade me on how I'm doing. You have no idea what this has cost me." Tom blinked. "Hey, I didn't mean." "No," I said, "you don't get to hey me either. You don't know what I've done to stay upright through this. You weren't there for the night terrors or the stomach flu or the way she used to call out for me in her sleep. You didn't build this from nothing. You just walked in when the hard part was already over." The air went still. Lisa's face froze, not angry, not ashamed, just blank, like a mask falling into place. "This isn't the time," she said, her voice brittle. "This is exactly the time." I turned to my daughter. She'd slid down from Tom's arms and was standing between us, looking up at me, her brow furrowed in that way that reminded me so much of my own mother, that quiet confusion, that subtle knowing. I crouched down, put my hands on her shoulders, gentle but firm. "I love you, kiddo," I said. My voice shook a little. "And I'm always going to be here, even when I'm not in the room, even if other people try to be in the pictures, you understand?" She nodded slowly, her lip trembled just a little. She didn't cry. She just leaned in and hugged me, her small body pressed against mine like she was trying to hold me together from the outside. I held her longer than I should have, then I let go. When I stood up, I looked at Lisa, not pleading, not angry, just tired, worn down to the bone. You can have whatever version of happiness this is, I said quietly, but don't pretend I'm not part of her. Don't erase me just because it's easier. No one said anything, not Tom, not Lisa. I walked out without looking back. The sunlight outside was too bright, but it felt good. I squinted into it, felt the cold air sting my cheeks, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was dragging a corpse behind me. I still hurt. Of course I did, but the ache was honest. It had edges now. It wasn't just fog, it was something I could finally name. And when I got to my car, I didn't collapse. I didn't scream. I just sat there, hands on the wheel, heart still pounding. But this time it wasn't panic. It was something else. It was clarity. I thought there'd be a crescendo, a moment when everything clicked back into place, some internal monologue about growth and resilience, a final sweeping scene where I exhale and the music swells and I drive off into the golden hour with my sunglasses on. But that's not how it works. Not really. Healing, I've learned, is quiet. It's brushing your teeth when you don't want to, folding laundry instead of letting it wrinkle in the basket, waking up on a Saturday and realizing you don't feel that crushing dread anymore, just the usual, manageable kind. Spring came slowly. The trees outside my window started greening at the edges, like someone was filling them in with a watercolor brush. Max started sleeping by the door again, like he was keeping watch. I rearranged the furniture one weekend on a whim, and it actually looked better. The couch no longer faced the blank spot on the wall where our wedding photo used to hang. That wall was empty now, and it felt honest. My daughter started saying "our house" instead of "your house." The first time she said it, I almost didn't catch it. She was walking into the kitchen, babbling about how she wanted macaroni and cheese and cereal for dinner. She said, "I'll go get my fork, we have the rainbow ones in our house." And I just stood there, wooden spoon in my hand, blinking against the sudden warmth behind my eyes. Our house. God. Jenna and I still saw each other at the dog park. There was no arc, no great romantic reveal. We never kissed. We didn't need to. Some people enter your life not to be a chapter, but just a breath, a still point in the hurricane. She'd hand me a coffee some mornings, and we'd talk about nothing in particular. How weird ducks are, why clouds look heavier than they are, whether or not Max had the capacity for existential thought. "You're different," she said one day. "Better or worse?" She shrugged. "Just different, like you stopped trying to be someone else's version of okay." I didn't say anything, but that stuck with me. Lisa and I kept things civil. Texts were mostly logistics now, drop-off times, reminders about sunscreen, notes about a runny nose or a loose tooth. We didn't fight, we didn't joke either, just the middle ground, that neutral space where we could coexist for the sake of someone smaller than us both. It was a kind of peace, not warm but functional, like a ceasefire with boundaries. I started cooking more. My daughter liked helping. She'd sit on the counter, legs swinging, sticking her fingers in everything. She called herself Chef Sprinkle and demanded to be in charge of all garnish decisions. I let her. The food usually ended up half covered in parsley, but it felt right, like something that belonged only to us. She still mentioned Tom sometimes, offhand things. "Tom says flamingos sleep on one leg. Tom makes really big pancakes." I used to flinch every time. I used to catalog those comments like betrayals. Now I just nodded. Sometimes I even smiled. I didn't need to be the only man in her world. I just needed to be the one she could count on. One night she asked me if I was sad, just out of nowhere, over a puzzle piece shaped like a cow. "Sometimes," I said, "but not because of you, never because of you." She looked at me for a long time, then she said, "It's okay. I get sad too, like when I can't find Bunny." I nodded exactly like that. We finished the puzzle together, one slow piece at a time. That night, after she was asleep, I sat on the edge of my bed and looked around the room. No photos of Lisa anymore, no reminders of what I lost. Just drawings on the walls, a bookshelf half full of bedtime stories, a pair of tiny socks peeking out from under the dresser. I realized I wasn't waiting for anything anymore. Not for reconciliation, not for revenge, not even for the pain to vanish. The truth is, the pain doesn't go, not completely. It changes shape. It stops screaming and starts whispering. It becomes part of the furniture, something you stop noticing until the light hits it a certain way. But even with it there, you can build. You can wake up and make pancakes. You can braid your daughter's hair. You can take a walk and not think about the past. You can laugh at something dumb on TV and not feel guilty about it. You can remember who you were before it all collapsed and start salvaging the pieces that still matter. You can start over. Not in the way people think, not with a new love or a new job or a dramatic haircut, but in the small ways. The quiet ways. One breath at a time,